Hello and welcome to another tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at Motion 5 and what we can do with it. Okay, so when we open Motion 5, we'll be greeted with this cool dialog. I've gone ahead and set up that the preset I want is Broadcast HD and a 3-second duration. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. There are also all kinds of presets in here that you could use, but most of them look kind of awful, so I just like to go with a blank project to start things up with. So we're going to start that up, and then the setup that needs to be done before we can start working here is we want to change our view to fit so it fits the workspace to the window. And then we want to turn our render settings down. So I want to turn off dynamic, turn resolution to quarter, turn quality to draft, turn off lighting, turn off reflections, turn off shadows, and turn off frame blending. We don't need that stuff. You don't need it. You might want it there in the render file, but you don't need it while working. It will just slow stuff down. Okay, so now what we can do here is down here we have the timeline. This works just like the timeline in any non-linear editor like Final Cut or maybe Premiere, if anyone's used that, with the exception of you don't have you do have a separate keyframing window, but it kind of comes up below and it's contextual. Yeah, here we have our main viewport, which is where we can go and move things about and do things with our images and elements that we'll be importing in. Over here we've got the file browser. This will allow us to look at certain things, import files. Then we've got our library, which is basically all the effects and image units, filters, behaviors, things like that we can put onto things to make them do things. And then we have our inspector, which is basically our more contextual stuff. Then here we have a layers palette, which is just like the layers in something like Photoshop or GIMP. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go and import a file. Some types of files you can't import, and I've just found this now, you can't import them well through the file browser. This here we've got here is a layered PSD, and it doesn't import well through the file browser, and you have to go through the manual import route to get this little pop-up, because what we want is to import this layered PSD, but we want to import all layers. And what that'll do is just give us, it'll go ahead and make a group for us, and then it'll make an image composite with 3 images in it, and these are images that have been set up with an image editor. And this is a useful technique because it allows you to do things in a 2-dimensional way very simply beforehand, and then go into Motion to add, well, motion and keyframeable effects to stuff. So let's start actually working on something. What we can do is with these layers, we can click here and we can move the entire composite around. Just going to undo that, or we can move around the individual layers, which is good because it gives us kind of 2 levels of control over this, and when we get into a bit more detail we'll start to see why that's useful. we can also select these things in the timeline. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and start to do some keyframing here. Just so you can get an idea of what's going on and what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is, because I want the image to end up here and not start up here, I'm going to do my keyframing backwards. And this is really useful in this kind of visual effects animation, because what you want to do is you want to make your finished product in something like Photoshop, or even within the viewer in motion. And if you do it kind of backwards, you can start up with the effect that you want to get to at the end. You'll see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a keyframe. I just need to make sure I'm on the right layer here, and I'm going to add a keyframe into, and we can always tell what we're working on because the little viewer here will show us, and it's also outlined in the working viewer here. So I'm just going to add a keyframe there, and then I'm going to drag all the way to the beginning, and I'm going to add another keyframe. There. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag around on the position X slider, and I'm just going to drag upwards until this is off the screen. So we can go there and add a keyframe and move something completely out of the field of view. And if we go ahead and play this now, we can see that because I'm doing screen recording here as well, quite slowly, our animation starts to move. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that same process for the other image in this composition. I'm going to add a keyframe there. Then I'm going to go back and to here, and I'm going to drag that right out of the frame of view. So if we hit play now, these will both start to come in. Okay, so say we've done that and we don't like it, and we want to change what's going on and we want to get a slightly more clear look. What we can do is we can click here on this little arrow, and we can just go show in keyframe editor, and that'll give us a nice little curves editor down here, and we can change stuff with it. So say we want we want it to end a little bit quicker, we can just go ahead and grab that and move it so it ends kind of sooner, and then we can go ahead to the other one. And we can go ahead and show in keyframe editor again. And we can bring that one in as well. Again, we need to be kind of careful there because it will kind of move it up and down and things, and do stuff that we might not want sometimes, but you just got to be careful while working there. So that's working. So we've got that, but we maybe want to go ahead and add some text to this. Pause. Okay, so what we can do is we can go ahead into our library. So, you know, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm just going to throw some text on with the text tool here. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly type something. There, so that's given us some text, and what we can do here is if we go over to our inspector again, we can go ahead and affect things like the size of this. And always when we're working with this, we need to be mindful about where the actual text placement box is, because it just could cause problems. We can shift the alignment as well, and we can change the font. We do have presets up there, but it's best to be making our own font stylings. Bring that there, bring the size up a little bit. I'm just going to drag the non-linear editor down again now, so we can see that. We can see that's put our text kind of quite towards the end, but we want it coming in about halfway through. So we just drag that around on the timeline. And we can drag an end point for that text as well. Okay, so we've got some basic text there, but what we want to do is we want to kind of animate it a little bit. So what we do for that is we select our text here, or we could select it as a layer, and then we want to go into our library, and we want to go to our text styles, not our text styles. We want to go to our behaviors tab, and we want to give the text behavior. And we have some text animation and some text sequencing stuff here. So maybe we want to drag on a track in style. And what that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and create an animation layer for the text. And it's just going to bring it in with the behavior we've given it. But so we don't like that, we can just select it and hit backspace to get rid of it. We can just go ahead and choose another one. And bring that in. Okay, so what if we don't quite like what it's doing? What we can do is we can go ahead to our inspector, and everything about that text style is keyframeable. Along with actually everything about the text itself. So what we can do is if we want to go ahead now and change, say we've got that little bit of that little bit of animation there. On that, we can go ahead and we can change different things, and we can keyframe them just like you would movement. So if I go ahead to that text, we can go to our text options, and if we find in our style palette face color, we could go ahead and add a keyframe at this point, and we could change it from, say, keep it simple. Let's just change it subtly there from white to a kind of off-white creamy color. We can do that just by changing it and adding a keyframe and changing it. So there, that will just tween between that white and an off-white. And if we just bring this up a little bit, we can go ahead and, oh, that's massively too big. We can go ahead and we can scale things and just stretch them around in the 3D view, and it doesn't affect anything that we've done beforehand. So if we decide later on we want something a little bit bigger, because this editing is all nice and non-destructive, we can do that. And we can go ahead and play it, and we can see that we've got an error there because our approach in isn't starting right when we would like it, so we can just go ahead and move that out a little bit and just keep going ahead and playing it. And this is how we'd like make a little composited sequence in motion. Okay, there's one more stage that we need to do to get this out and looking okay. I'm just going to go ahead and add a drop shadow to that text. And move the distance out a little bit, just so we can kind of see it there. Okay, now we need to go ahead and export this, so we can just go to... Now, this is one of the things that I have an irritation with Apple with the new Motion. Everybody's kind of screaming about the new whole single window thing and stuff, but I think more annoying is that they've taken our export options out of File and put them over into Share. It's just a little bit consumer and slightly annoying. The rest of the program is actually still great, but that's just annoying. So what we need to do is we need to go Share and then Export Movie. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to go ahead and export this for use in something else. So I'm going to keep the compression as H.264, and I'm going to keep the open with QuickTime thing there, and video only. The duration is fine. Our render settings, we want to go and send our render quality to best, our fields on, our motion blur on, our frame blending on. Our lighting we can keep off because we haven't initiated any lighting changes. Our shadows we can keep off. Reflections we can keep off, and depth of field we can turn on even though it's not going to do anything. You can just go ahead and click next there. And I'm just going to save this to the desktop as tutorial. I'm going to hit save. And what this is going to go ahead and do is it's going to render out the movie, and this is going to take maybe 2 minutes or so to do. For this, over to the desktop now. Well, where this will have opened up, and we can go ahead and play a full screen, full quality render of it. It is of course much quicker than the version we were working with, but it does work. And again, we can see that whereas in the draft quality in motion was quite low, and we couldn't quite see the quality that we were working at, when we go ahead and render it out, it renders out quite good quality there. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you here again soon.